we discussed the capacitive touch screen, like the way we discussed the resistive touch screen, and we did show the physical structure of the circuit. We modeled it and then tried to see how we could sense capacitance at a certain location in the screen, and we can figure out the location where your finger is touching the capacitive screen, right? And then we were trying to build a model towards more generalized capacitive sensing, and we introduced how we could do that using a microcontroller based system, right? And we are going to carry forward on that discussion. And before that, because we were now going through this particular topic of touch sensing, I thought that I'll share this information with you, right? Many of you might know that this year's Nobel Prize in Medicine was given to the discovery of the receptors that we have for temperature and touch, right? The way human beings perceive touch, mechanical vibrations, temperature, how we understand rough surfaces and smooth surfaces, hot objects, cold objects, sharp objects, and so on. So the receptors that we have in our body was sort of investigated by David and Ardem, who won the Nobel Prize this year, right? And one of the direct applications in human-computer interface we have are the haptic systems, right, which has a vibratory sort of a feedback. For example, you have haptic feedback in some of the smartphones, or if you are using an AR VR system, sometimes they will vibrate to let you know that it's kind of an alarm sort of a thing. Or if you in the recent advanced cars, right, if you, let's say, if you are over speeding, maybe there will be a haptic feedback from the steering that tells you to slow down, right? So these are some of the external stimuli that can serve as indicators to our nervous system, right, so that we sort of get alerted. Okay, so this is something that we can relate to, right? And things that have direct applications in human computer interfaces. Okay, so now just continuing with whatever we discussed for the last two classes, we spoke about two things. In particular, we spoke about the design of the electrodes, and then how do you measure capacitance, or how do you get even a proxy for the measurement of capacitance in a digital system or the microcontroller based system that we are talking about, right? And I'm just going to recall the fact that in case of the resistive touch screen that we were discussing, so resistive, we were using a strip and like a conductor strip, and applied a voltage gradient through it. So if one side was grounded, the other side we put a like a positive voltage, and this had some resistance which was responsible for creating the voltage gradient. So in this particular place, you will have a very high value of voltage which will go down with as you go more and more towards the end of the strip, right? And the way we were trying to find out the location was through looking at the voltage drop. So the voltage drop that we would see at a certain, if we tap our finger at a certain point in the electrode here, was by mapping this analog voltage value, how much was the drop to certain distance, right? And we knew that the length of the strip is directly proportional to the voltage drop, because it will be directly proportional to the resistance also, right? So the length is proportional to the voltage drop. Okay, so this was the main intuition behind the resistive touch sensing, and we actually applied crisscrossed kind of a physical structure of the circuit, where we had a vertical voltage gradient and a horizontal voltage gradient to figure out the two-dimensional location in a touch screen that is in 2D. Okay, and after that we started looking at the capacitive touchscreen model, where we saw that it's all the pixels were independent, right? We sort of created the system such that we can support things like multi-touch, which was not possible in a resistive case, right? In case of the resistive touchscreen, if we apply two taps in two different locations, it would be difficult to figure out the exact locations of the voltage drop, right? So that's the reason we wanted to do something which is different, where we can register touches at multiple touch points. Okay, and for that we wanted to treat individual touch points independently, and that led us to the design of the capacitive touchscreen using this new element called capacitors. And we also learned how do you analyze a circuit using a series or a parallel connection of capacitors, and how to convert the physical structure of the circuit that we showed in the last class. When you touch the electrodes, how do you have an equivalent capacitive circuit for analyzing those kind of scenarios. Okay, so we did that, and now where we sort of stopped was that how do you measure the value of the capacitance, right? The way we were measuring voltage here, in case of the resistive touchscreen, we have to have some way in the circuit itself, right, to measure the capacitance that was introduced because of touching the circuit, right? Because we are trying to build a touch sensor. Okay, so till now I hope this is clear. And then the other thing was the signal processing part, where we were interested in understanding the different variations in the touch, right? So some like, let's say I would say variations in touch, or I would say gestures. Okay, so this could be used for inferring those kind of particular gestures, classifying them based on the data that is being fed by the sensing system. So this is the data, the digital data I would say rather, and you need to do some signal processing on top of the data. That could be as simple as noise filtering, as I will show you some examples today and the next day, or it could be very, very complicated, where you want to apply some machine learning models to classify that data into certain set of gestures, right? So this part is pretty matured, and it's also evolving. So there's a lot of interesting things happening in this particular part, right, where you look at the touch related data and trying to classify them to various kinds of gestures, or based on the application in hand, there could be multiple types of classifications possible, right? It could be even what kind of surface is being touched, right? Even those, like whether it's one hand, or you are actually touching with let's say two hands, or one finger, two finger, three fingers, so on, right? The different kinds of things could be analyzed using this particular pipeline. Okay, and the next thing that we started but did not quite finish was looking at some ways to do the measurement based on a microcontroller. How can you do such measurements when this capacitance is introduced? So as we know that here we look at the RC curve, where one on the y-axis you look at if this is the level is wrong, so this is voltage. Okay, so as we already saw last class, that the current would be maximum when your the time is starting from 0, where the current starts to flow, and there is almost no charge in the capacitor, right? And slowly the charge accumulates in the capacitor as the current flows, and slowly the current goes to 0, whereas the voltage gets stuck at the Vmax, that is the maximum potential difference that was applied across the capacitor. Okay, so and it takes a finite amount of time, which is dependent on the resistance value and the capacitance value, which is R into C, and you basically, the total time that is required for the capacitor to get charged, the function of that, it's directly proportional to that particular value. Okay, so during the time it gets charged, we call it the charging phase. Okay, and after that it could discharge, and so on, right? And then we also saw that while putting a touch on top of this circuit, right, we show this yellow circle, the blob, where I bring this hand to indicate that somebody is touching that particular part of the circuit. This could be drawn in an equivalent form, where we could have another capacitor, or in net it might change the equivalent capacitance of the circuit connected to the ground. So we can reduce that circuit figure with the human hand in it to some sort of a circuit like this, right? And based on the way you are touching, based on the other portions of the circuit, the initial capacitance that could be present, you will have different values of R and C. So this charging phase could have different time periods, right? It could either be a small time, a shorter time delay, and it could be longer also, right? As in the red one, the time it takes to charge the capacitor is much longer, whereas in case of the green plot, it is much of a shorter time. And we are more interested in looking at the time that it takes, right? When we start charging the circuit or charging the capacitor, and whenever the potential difference in between them, or the current stops flowing rather, is VC max or VC, that is the potential difference that is all anyway applied across, right? How long does it take to reach that particular point, right? How much time does it take? And we are interested to sort of know about that particular time, which in turn will tell us what was the approximate value of the equivalent capacitance, right? That's what exactly we are wanting to know. Okay, so instead of measuring the capacitance directly, we are trying to measure the time. Okay, and the R's could be all known. So if you actually in your circuit, there the specifications of the circuit, you can know that what are the different R's that are actually there, and the capacitance that is actually brought in by the external entity because of touch sort of a gesture that we are showing here. What is the extra value of capacitance that is brought in, that is going to influence the time that it takes now to charge the particular capacitor. Okay, so any questions from this part? This was something that was covered in the last class, but I just wanted to reiterate this thing. Okay.
Sir, I have a small doubt actually.
Yeah, ask.
So, even if we don't apply the touch, there will be some voltage across the C1 capacitor. So, this capacitor will be always charging and discharging in this phase.
No. How can it charge and discharge? Right, the current has to flow, right? It has to complete the entire circuit, right? But also the other thing is that even if it charges and discharges somehow, the point that like suppose you make the circuit complete, and let's say C1 charges and discharges, right? Let's say. So what we are interested in is that this C1 is alone now, right? But because of the extra capacitance that is brought in because of the touch, the C equivalent that you will have is different than C1, right? So the time it will take for charging and discharging will be different when you have the extraneous capacitance that is brought into the circuit. Is that clear now?
Thank you, sir.
I mean, doesn't matter. Like, let's say even if it is if it charges and discharge, doesn't matter, right? So what I wanted to let you understand is that the time will be different. Let's say the base case, there is C1 that is, let's say, always present in the circuit. R high, R low is always present in the circuit. That this configuration will give you a certain time. Whenever you bring in extra capacitance, the equivalent capacitance will change. So you will get a different value, right? Earlier, suppose you were following the red curve. Let's say this is the default curve, right? And when you bring in extra entities to the circuit, let's say I'm touching it with one finger, right? I see a certain capacitance. When I touch it with two fingers, let's say, right, I am seeing a different capacitance, and based on that, the time to charge and discharge will change, right? Like particularly charging, right? We are not talking here about the discharging part. The time to charge will change. Okay, so that should indicate that something extraneous has been introduced to the circuit. Okay. So now, let's say we are interested in really going to go into this particular phenomenon and trying to see how can we interpret this phenomenon using a microcontroller, and in specifically we want to measure this time. Okay, So let's say this VC is an external voltage that is applied, and we can replace this with the microcontroller pin as well, because we can orchestrate these values, right? We can put a digital high to a particular pin, and this can very well be very well supply the voltage. Okay. And there is another pin in the downside, which we have after this R high, and then we are interested in measuring the time. Okay. When the voltage basically becomes Vmax, whatever the voltage we are putting from the top pin, it becomes Vmax or VC, whatever you call it, on the bottom pin as well. So we name these two particular pins as the top one as a reference electrode, where we are supplying the voltage VC, and the other one we call it the sensing electrode. It's just names I came up with, right? Some people called it send, receive. We can call it a reference electrode, sensing electrode, and so on. So basically, the bottom side pin is our sensing pin. Okay, and that sensing pin is going to we somehow have to probe that sensing pin in order to know that whether the capacitance, or whether the capacitor, equivalent capacitor, is charged or not, right? Or how much time has elapsed from the time the reference electrode was turned on. Okay, so I want to give you a few minutes to think about it, right? And try to guess some intuitive way to capture this time delay, right? In terms of a code, right? In terms of a computer code, how can you come up with a small but simple algorithm in order to find this time difference? Okay. So if you have something to suggest, please let me know, or I'll wait for some time, because I want you guys to think about it, and so that even if you do not come up with an answer, please think about it, so that we can go towards the solution. And this is kind of the crux of how capacitive sensing works. Okay. So anybody wants to guess? I'll give you a couple of minutes. Please think about it. Right? There is nothing that difficult here.
So I mean, we'll check from the time we started the current till the current became zero, because that's when the capacitor
slowly. Can you tell me step by step?
So first we send in the current, and when the capacitor saturates,
first of all, we cannot have. See, current source is difficult, right? We don't have any current source. It's just a voltage source.
Right. Yes, sir. I mean, current source in the sense, yes, we'll put a voltage, and then the current will initially pass through it. For a given voltage across the resistors, after a certain time,
let me mark them, right? Let me mark them A and B. Now can you tell me what exactly we are, because these are two microcontroller pins, and rest is outside the microcontroller, right? This R low, C, Q are all happening outside the board.
It is based on the clock ticks. We could able to find the difference.
Clock ticks between what and what?
Microcontroller A and microcontroller B.
No. This is only one microcontroller. Sorry, because this is just a one pin. Probably the diagram is sort of confusing. It's the same microcontroller. So this is like pin A.
Pin A.
And there is a pin B.
Yeah. So the detection of the current at two different points based on the clock tick, we can find the time.
The clock tick between what and what?
Yeah, we can use a counter register, and we can initiate, start the counter at the situation when we give a voltage out through the pin A, and then once we receive back through the pin B, we can measure, we can find the value of the value in the counter register, and with the frequency that's applied to that counter updation, then we'll be knowing the time delay between the time, the time that that's being taken for B being raised up from the instant where we supplied a voltage in the pin A.
Very nice. Yeah, is the right.
And even there are few microcontrollers that even have timer input capture modes, which we can directly utilize to get
true. So you can say that it's an interrupt. But why did you say it will isn't it that A and B are sort of shorted, right? Why whenever you are trying to put a voltage in A, isn't it instantaneously you have a voltage in B?
So initially I saw the current in the CEQ, but it is saturate after some time.
So it's not instantaneous, is it? Like
Yeah,
if
it
you
is not
put a,
instant. Sir. There will be some time delay, sir.
why?
A millisecond, because it has to crash that resistor high, and then it comes here.
Oh, if it is taking milliseconds, my this our Google class will take hours to reach you.
Oh,
Just
microsecond. Sorry.
nothing. It's like electricity, not even microseconds.
Okay, sir.
I mean, it's a different reason why it is not instantaneous. Is it going to be instantaneous at all in any case where it is instantaneous?
Sir, I mean, the current will instantaneously flow, sir, but the value, it will be different initially and different finally, right? Because
Finally, it will be zero. Right?
yeah,
In case if we but if we don't have the any capacitance in the circuit, what will happen? Well, let's say there is no capacitance, right? Ceq is zero.
Okay.
so what are the voltages at A and B?
It's up to you. We have to apply from the code. Right? Let's say you want to apply a voltage. You said only, right? You want to apply a voltage in pin A, and then wait for some time by probing pin B, right? And you want to measure the time in between them.
Yes, sir. So we'll keep the same voltage at A and B, like let's say 5 volts. So initially, initially CEQ is basically like a short, since the capacitor is not filled with charge.
Right.
So there'll be current flow across that, and we'll find a voltage at B, which is different.
But you
from
said you
the
are
voltage.
going to put 5 and 5 at A and B, right? Which means that
No,
R high.
oh, sorry, sir. At A, I will keep 5 volt, and then B, I don't do anything. But after some time, when there is no current flow at all, the voltage at A and B will become both 5 volts, because there's no current flowing through R high.
Right.
So, then.
But there will be a voltage drop, no? Because B will never be, because the voltage at B will never be equal to voltage at A, because R high is going to do a big voltage drop.
Yes, sir. So initially the voltage was like let's say VA. VA into RL by RL plus RH was the initial voltage, and finally it will become equal to RA. So there's a difference in the factor. Once it's partial, RL by RL plus RH, and now it is 1.
Right. Yeah. Correct. And if you have CEQ like present, then after some time, your as we saw in the previous figure also, that when your current, like the voltage sort of the charge saturates inside the capacitor, you won't have any current flow. So in that case, there will be no voltage drop across R high, right? In that case, pin A and pin B should have exactly the same value of the voltage. Okay, does this make sense?
Sir, it will be having the same voltage, but it will be instantaneous is the doubt, sir. Between pin A.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Yeah, go on.
So I mean, current being there is always instantaneousness. Like when I connect it instantaneously at that moment, since CEQ is chargeless, it will act like a zero resistance. So there in that circuit is basically an RA, a VA, an RH, some VB in between, R and direct connection to ground. But after some time, that CEQ literally act like a broken connection. It's a
in that time the voltage will be the same and zero current will be flowing through it.
Yes, sir. So what instantaneously current shall flow, right?
Yeah, at the very beginning, yes.
Yes, sir.
At the very beginning, current will flow, and the voltage at pin B is going to mount up, right, slowly.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and eventually, when you have completely a broken circuit, like open circuit, there will be no current, but all point A and point B and R low will be at all the same potential. Okay, so that's why I thank you for participating. So that's why I wanted to give you some time so that we can brainstorm the solution, right? Because while you try to implement this, you will see that there are so many hiccups we will come across, and I just want you to understand this kind of implementation, right? How do you implement this and run this kind of a system? Okay, so let us go through the flow chart, right? We sort of discussed, right? Some of you have already probably understood, right, how to proceed with this particular thing. And if you have not, we will give more clarifications, and please try to ask more questions, right? So that it's kind of clear in your head. Okay. So as you understand, on the left-hand side, we have named these two pins as a reference pin on top, and mind it, there is not a two microcontrollers. Probably I should have drawn a picture of a microcontroller, and this is basically, these are the two pins that are jutting out of it, right? It is, let's say, some input output GPIO pins. Okay, one I call pin reference and the other one I call pin sense. Okay, and this is the configuration of the circuit. I will come to the point why R high, and it could be any R, by the way, but why suddenly R high and R low, we are going to discuss that later, right? And then there is the C equivalent, where some C could have been present and some extra capacitance was introduced because of the touch, right? It could be that there is no touch present, but it doesn't matter. Whenever the touch is introduced, we should be able to distinguish in between those two phenomena, right? So, in one state, somebody is not touching, and the other state somebody is touching. Okay, and let's see how the flow chart will look like. So the first thing we should ideally do is discharge pin sense, right? We should make sure that the pin sense does not have any voltage present in it, right? At that particular point in time when we start, we need to make sure this pin sense is absolutely discharged. Okay, and these small things, right, these are so important, right? I want to take you through the implementation, right? I have a very simple implementation that is more accessible, right? It's more for a this kind of a tutorial. You'll see this, all these simple things matter so much to make this thing work. Okay, so the first thing that we should do is make sure that pin sense is discharged. The next thing is, somebody already mentioned this thing, we have to maintain some kind of a counter, right? In a digital system where we want to keep track of time, either using hardware counters or some kind of a timer that we might have internally. I did not use it deliberately because I did not teach you this timer per se, right? In the next 1 or 2 classes, I'll teach you how this timer works, and then I want to use those kind of things. For now, I am just telling you that we can just simply keep a variable, right? And that variable could keep the count value. Okay, and this count value is meant for maintaining or some proxy of the time that we want to measure. Okay, so we want to stop and reset the counter. Maybe you can put the counter value to 0. We can configure some timeouts because whenever we have this time measurement kind of a program that we want to design, there are chances that it's not going to, there could be some kind of an infinite loop that we might run into, because our conditions that we are basing our loop is never satisfied. Okay, there are corner cases that could always happen. This could always happen, and for those kind of things, we always have to have some timeouts. And if our counter value exceeds the timeout, we just want to break out, right? And then try it for another time. Okay, and after that, we want to make this pin ref on and immediately start the counter. Okay, what does on mean? If you are using this digital input output pins, we can simply say that we are putting a 5 volt value or 5 volt voltage in the pin reference, and then immediately we want to start the counter. So that is the first part that we want to do. Okay, so this is exactly what some of you have suggested. So there is absolutely no difference than what has to be done. So next, what we should do is that we want to continuously look at the pin senses value, right? What is the either you could look at the analog voltage value. In this case, let's say just we stick to the digital value, whether the pin sense, if it actually comes to 5 volts also, that means that pin sense is charged, right? That you will basically see whether the pin sense is on or not, right? So if you particularly probe that pin sense pin, right, we will see how to do that, and you have to go back to like many classes earlier. We have studied how to configure those pins and how do you configure ports, how do you read from these pins, and so on. So those knowledge will be useful, right? And if this this pin sense has been turned on, right, this could be one case that I have mentioned as yes. and likely before it gets charged, you will probably see many cases where it is not charged, right? Because once you start the counter, you will keep on checking whether pin sense is charged or not, right? At the very few tries in the beginning, you will always see it has not been charged, because it will take some time to charge to get the digital value of 1 in pin sense. So earlier you will mostly see this no, right? And then if the timeout has not been exceeded, then you keep on probing that pin sense, right? You keep on watching the value of the pin sense. Okay, so if it is timed out, or if the pin sense is charged, then we go to this next location where we want to see how do you reset the system and then report the whether you think that there was a touch or not, right? So after this is over, right, after the pin sense is charged, we probably register that value, that what was the value of the counter, and that counter value could tell you a lot about the context of the touch, right? And after that is done, what you want to do is that you want to make this pin reference off, and so that you go more into the discharge cycle, right? You don't want the charge to remain in the circuit anymore, and then return the value of the counter, and this is the value that you want to analyze, right? And you will get a series of values like this for every cycle. Okay, so every sense cycle you will get a value. Okay, so now the signal processing part is going to look at all these counter values and then interpret the touch. Okay, and that is the end of your flow chart. So you start with discharging pin sense, next setting up the counter, resetting it, or making it 0, configuration of the timeouts. Then you start make, this is like a lever that you turn on, right? You basically turn on pin ref, and immediately current will start flowing, and you will see some voltage that is getting generated here. And whenever the voltage becomes such that you can relate it to digital 1, or if you read from that pin and you can see that the pin is set, right, the bit that is responsible for that particular pin's digital value is set, you can conclude that the pin is charged, and then you can then go to the next sensing cycle. And before that you want to discharge the circuit, so that you want to make pin ref is equal to off, return the counter, and you are done. Okay, so hope this is clear, right? This is exactly the replica of the discussion that we had a few minutes back.
Sure. So, but here it will be like some e to the power minus something into t, right? So by the time it totally gets charged, then it's going to take infinite time practically. I mean,
right. But for all practical reasons, right, you will have a voltage cutoff for a digital pin in a microcontroller. Right, it's it depends on the logic, right? Whether it's a 3.3 volt logic, it's a 2.5 volt logic, and so on. So wherever that voltage exceeds that particular value, you'll read digital value 1, isn't it?
Yes. So we get a relative comparison stuff. Absolutely.
True. All we care about is every operation we are doing is relative, right? Here we just want to make sure that whether C equivalent has become C equivalent prime or not. Right, earlier it was just C1, now it has become C equivalent. I just want to register the difference. If there is a difference, something has changed in the circuit. That's all we are interested about, right? We are really not mind it, right? We are not trying to measure the capacitance value and report it to the world, right? All we are interested in is that whether the touch has taken place or not. So that's the proxy that we are using, right? Okay. So hope that is clear. It's a very good question that you have asked, right? It will theoretically to reach 5 volts it will take infinite time, but all we care about here is the tolerance of the particular pin, right? Whenever it crosses 3.3 or 4.4 or 4.1, it is going to report that it has been turned on. Okay.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yeah. So now let us look at the timeline. Right, although this discharging and charging looks very trivial, right? You have to do certain things with respect to the pins, right, in order to really charge or discharge the circuit. And there are even internal reasons why we want to do something. I will go to a very limited extent why we are doing this, and I'll refer to some of the materials, because really explaining all the nitty-gritty details inside the microcontroller, why, how it is discharged and all, using pull-up resistors, pull-down resistors, I won't go into that much details, but it is in the manual that I have sent you, right? The Atmel, this AVR manual that I have sent you, it's already explicitly mentioned what exactly is the functionality, right? How do you discharge the pins, how using this pull-up resistors or the pull-down resistors and so on. Okay, so I am going to give you a schematic of the timeline. Pin sense and pin ref are the two pins that we have in the system. It can take two possible values, low and high. So low means if you write 0, and high means if you write 1. Right? You have this Arduino function called digital write, right? So if you do a digital write of pin sense 1, that means you are setting that pin sense to a high value. Okay, and as you know, here it's an extremely time critical system. So instead of using digital write and all those kind of APIs, we have to better use assembly level code, right? And these are the situations where real time control is essential, right? Earlier I taught you why do you need to do so much about latency, right? Earlier just using digital write, we spent one entire class in order to change the digital write thing to some another assembly level code, right? And now you can see the utility. If you do those kind of API calls here, you will miss the latency by a huge margin. Okay, so this is extremely time sensitive, time critical code, because you are trying to have some proxy measurement of this RC delay, which is itself very small number. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is set this pin ref as out, right? It is going to be used as outputting some kind of a voltage to the outside circuit from the microcontroller. And as you know, if it is configured as an input, we are expecting to read voltage inside the microcontroller from an external source, right, through that particular pin. So for pin ref, we are always going to use it as an output. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to basically discharge pin sense. So for that, there is a certain thing we want to do. We first want to configure this as an input. Next, we want to configure this as an output, and then we want to write the digital value low. Okay, so this is what we have to do, and then wait, right? So this is going to discharge that particular pin, that pin sense that I have shown. Okay, so I basically flip its mode. I basically configure it as an input. Immediately after that, I configure it as an output and write low. So it is configured as an output, and I'm also writing digital 0, which means there is it should be connected to the ground, and all the charge that could have been accumulated for the in that particular pin sense is going to be going away. Okay, and in the same time, we are also going to configure this particular pin reference during all these operations as low, because we don't want any unwanted charge to flow from pin ref towards pin sense. For all this time, while we want to discharge pin sense, we also want to make sure that pin ref is also kept at low. If you don't keep at this one at low, there will be some charge that will always try to flow, right? So for safety, you want to do something like this. And after that, you have to introduce some delay, right? This is not instantaneous. Several microseconds delay you can give after writing low to that particular pin, so that it discharges. So this operation on the top makes sure that pin sense has been discharged. Okay, so now I have to do one thing. I have to basically pull the lever for pin ref, right? So I first want to make sure that it is configured as an input, right? So unless and until I configure it as an input, I don't want to pull the lever, right? Otherwise, there will be some mismatch in timing. Okay, so this is the ultimate point where I want to start the counter. Okay, so I have discharged pin sense. I have made careful attempt so that there is no leakage of charge from pin ref. So pin ref was kept at output anyway, and then it was configured as a low. Now after discharging, I have configured pin sense as input. So only one thing I have to trigger is this. Okay, so whenever I write high to this particular pin, pin sense is going to raise the voltage, right? The voltage of pin sense is going to be raised. How this will be? Following something like this, right? As we have seen that the voltage is going to slowly rise, and based on the RC profile that you have already seen in the last few slides, it's slowly going to rise up, and the delta is something that we are going to keep track of. Whenever I am creating this high voltage in the pin ref, immediately I am going to start a counter, and this delta will be kept on incrementing, right? We will do delta plus plus, delta plus plus, and at a certain point in time, I will see that, okay, pin sense is high. Okay, so there will be a certain code that will keep on profiling whether this one is at a digital high or not. And see, I have sort of deliberately kept this particular gap, right? This particular, I could have just joined this with this, right? But somebody asked the question that it will take infinite time actually to theoretically, right, to reach 5 volts. But the system will trigger a digital value of 1 much earlier before it reaches 5 volt, right? So normally, if you even cross 3 volts in a given pin, the system will think that it's already digital 1. Okay, so at this particular point in time, the timer will expire, and you will have some value of delta, right? And now you have to reset the system. So the delta you have in your hand, and you can report this value of delta outside of the code, right? Whatever application that you are developing, and you have to, after that, make sure that everything is in place, so you can deliberately write 1 or high to pin sense. Okay, so internally doing that will make sure that it is completely charged, right? It is charged to whatever is desired, what is the maximum voltage level, so it can, so that the pin can actually assume 5 volt. Okay, and after that you want to configure that as an output and again make it high. So this is the recipe for making sure that the particular pin is charged. Okay, and during this time, this is in the bottom side, we are also tracking pin ref, which was kept at high, right? And now before the next operation starts, we need to make sure that it is kept at low, and it's switched to low, and then it is again switched to, the other thing is switched to input, right? So the pin sense is switched to input. Okay, so this is the entire pipeline, or the entire time diagram of these 2 pins, right? What we need to do with these 2 pins in order to achieve this value delta, right? And we have to kind of religiously follow this entire timeline, otherwise there will be some inadvertent bug that is going to crop into the system, and that will give you some other funny value of delta, right? And which will have no relation to whether you are touching the system, you are actually doing a touch or not, right? So you have to very clearly implement this, right? And there are many if you want to do it on your own, you can very easily do it, right? There is only one resistance that you need, right? And as I will also demonstrate and show you how you can do it on your own, and I would recommend that you try to implement this, right? I am going to take you through the implementation, but it's always better that you want to do it, right? If you happen to have one Arduino with you, only extra thing that you need is one resistance, okay, or one resistor. And this is the thing you want to keep on doing continuously, that I have marked with green. And the initial part of configuring pin ref as output is only one time. You can do it in the very beginning, for example, in the setup part of the code. Okay, and this could be the loop, right? That is something that is going to be running continuously. And there are 2 things. The first one, as I would again reiterate, is the discharge part, right? This is going to make sure that pin sense is discharged. Keep this in mind. And there are 2 portions where we are charging, right? The first one is once we make the pin ref high, immediately it is going to charge up the circuit until a certain point in time when pin sense digital value is 1. Till that time it will be charged, and then we are going to do the extra charging, because beyond 2.5 or beyond 3.3 we want to spend some more time charging up that particular pin. Okay, and after that we want to write this value as low and configure this as an input, right? And after that we could be done, right? So this is like one sensing cycle. Any questions from here? Because we are going to implement the exact same thing now and see how whether it works.
Sir, so here in the pin ref part, to discharge the whole capacitor, this low has to be the same as the ground in the capacitor in the previous slide, right? So
yeah, I mean this is discharging the pin, by the way.
I mean, we have to discharge the capacitor also, right? First.
Yeah. I mean, if you connect it to the ground because the microcontroller will have an internal ground in it, no?
Yes, sir. So how do you make sure that this ground is the same as the ground?
So you have to make, you have to make sure. Yeah, you have to make sure about that.
I mean, sir, because the human body is also involved in the capacitance, right? So
I mean, the way you want to do the circuit setup, right? The ground that has to take the common reference from the Arduino's ground.
yes, sir. But in that capacitance, even my body is involved, right? So even the ground is like another, place where the charge could be going. So how do you make sure that capacitance is connected to a particular ground, which I know the value of?
See, there will be a ground inside the microcontroller, no? And then there is a pull down resistor that I wanted to avoid that discussion, right? So the pull down resistor could be configured such that a particular pin is discharged. There is a functionality within the microcontroller to do that. Okay, so if you look at the manual, there is a pull-up resistor which is going to pull up the voltage of a particular pin to 5 volts, and there is a pull-down resistor which is going to discharge the charge that is present in a particular pin. So for that you have the pull-up and the pull-down resistors, and this is the recipe by which you want to do that. Okay, if you look at the functionality for a pin about in the manual, it is clearly mentioned.
Yes.
Okay, so please take a look at that, and I think it will be clear. Okay, and the ground of the particular circuit has to be the same as the ground of the microcontroller, right? So that has to be made sure that it is done. Okay, anything else? Okay. So now we want to just implement this, and here, and before that I want to show you the pin diagrams, right? How do you want to, if you want to implement something like this, I want to show you one example how to do it. So there are these 2 pins, and these 2 pins has to be interfaced with the microcontroller. Here we are using Arduino's digital input output pins, and these are again reiterating the particular figure. And let's say we want to connect two pins, right? One is the digital pin 6, which could be used as the reference pin for putting the initial voltage, 5 volt we want to put there, and the voltage value will be read from pin sense, which is another pin 7. I randomly chose 6 and 7, but you are free to choose any digital input output pins for your purpose, right? So all these pins will have internal pull up and pull down registers for every bit, right? If you are talking about a particular port, within a particular port you will have a set of pins which are mapped to certain bits in the port register, and all of those particular bits will have facility to pull up the voltage or pull down the voltage or discharge, right? So that is that you are like instructed, right? If you are interested, you are instructed to look at the manual. Okay, so this is the pin diagram, or how we are interfacing the electrodes. Okay, so next is just a recall, right, of people who have forgotten how do you do this interfacing. Is about, we need to look at the 2 things that are important here. One is we were configuring a particular pin as input and output, right? That basically depends on the data direction register. So in the data direction register, if we set a value of 1, it basically means that it is being configured as an output, whereas if we put a value of 0, that means that it is being configured as an input, right? And similarly, if you want to write some data, suppose you want to configure a particular pin as high, so for that particular port, you have to look at the corresponding bit, right? If you want to look at this particular pins, right? If you are interested in digital pin 6 and 7, this maps to port D, right? And we have to, in the manual or in the instruction set, we have to see what is the register address for port D, right? Which is 0x hexadecimal 0A for the data direction register, and hexadecimal 0B for the data register, right? Where we want to set the particular pin as high or low. Okay, so hope you recall this particular thing, right? And the way we were doing it, I just happened to have an old example, right, where we tried to implement or re-implement the blink example without using all this digital write and delay, right? If you remember, we had this digital write, right? That was an API to configure a particular pin, let's say some pin X as high or low, right? You can write at 1 or 0, which we saw how could be mapped to some assembly level instruction, which, by the way, will take much less latency and much less memory. So in this particular case, we are more interested in much lesser latency. Okay, so the time that this particular API will take to execute will be much greater than the time that will be taken by using this assembly instruction. So here there are two things. One is the ports register IO, the IO address, right? In case we are using port D, we have to use the port address as 0A, right? And there was another thing, right, I would like to mention. We also looked at two types of addresses here, right? One was the address if you are using it from the program memory, and the other type of address was if it was being used by some for some input output, right? So the set bit instruction, like the set bit or clear bit and all. So these are all IO assembly instructions which will require you to use the register's IO address, which is 0A or 0B in this case, right? And then the last one, the 7 here or 6, whatever, right? So this is the port pin to the register bit mapping. So it tells you that please set the 7th bit in port D, okay? Or in this case, it is being configured as an output, okay? So 0A is the data direction register. So this is a DDR, the data direction, and then this is the data. So you can simultaneously configure it as a high or low. And based on that, we saw that how we could blink a particular LED, okay? So we have to use the same concept. We have to configure a certain pin as high or low, and then put or configure them as input, output, or write a value high or low. Right? These are the only things that we will require in order to implement this touch sensing protocol. Okay, so back to our thing. So we are going to use 0x0A, which is basically for data direction, and 0x0B is for the data. And we are going to use pin 6 and 7. So the bits that we will be choosing is 6th and 7th bit in the port D register. Okay, hope this is clear. The interfacing is clear. And now we are going to look at these 3 stages: the discharging part, the sensing part, where we want to configure or we want to estimate the value of delta, and then there the final one, which is basically charging it again. Okay, so for the first one, there are 2 things we have to do. First is we have to we know that this is 6th pin and the 7th pin, so keep that in mind while you implement the code. And in the code, there is this thing that is mandatory because while we do all these things, right, we don't want any unwanted interrupts in the system, right? So the interrupt could completely jeopardize your measurement. So CLI is basically referring to something called clear interrupt, and which is going to make sure that no interrupts are coming, And you can also use an equivalent API called no interrupts, right? There is something called no interrupts, and the time in between this is very critical. Once you stop all these things and once you set up the interrupt, you want to do this operation of discharging. Okay, so what should be done first is this is for pin number 6, right? We want to make it as a low, right? So low is the data register. So in data is 0x0b, and you want to clear the 6th bit, which is going to achieve the digital value of low in pin 6. Okay, and for the next thing that you want to do is you want to look at pin number 7 and do the discharge operation. So first you want to flip this thing, right? You want to clear bit 7 and set bit 7. So this is immediately made as an input and then flip to output. Okay, so you configure once as input, once as output, and then write a value low. So which is basically clearing the 7th bit in the 0x0b register. Okay, which is the data register. Okay, so 0x0a is the data direction register. And now wait for some time. So give it a delay of 10 microseconds. And this will make sure that your pin number 7 is discharged. Okay, and then you have to do 2 more things. One is setting up the pin number 7 as an input. Okay, how does it? So if the data direction register 7th bit is cleared, so CVI 0x0A7, and now you want to make the reference pin high. So for making the reference pin high, you want to look at the data register, so that is 0x0b, and you want to set the 6th bit. Okay, so this is going to make sure that you are ready to jump on to the next step. You want to start your counter. Okay, so now you have to continuously probe a particular pin. In this case, pin sense has to be particularly probed and made sure that what is the voltage level there. Okay, so in this case we are interested in this slot where we want to measure the value of delta. Okay, so as you can understand, this is basically, of course it will be a while loop with some conditions, right? And let me be very clear with that. So there will be some value of delta. We can initialize delta with 1 or 0, and then while this particular sensing operation takes place, right, we want to increment the value of delta by 1. Okay, and how long we are going to do this is the question. One easy answer is that we should make sure that delta does not exceed the timeout. So the carrier, the capacitive sensing timeout, we could set to some several hundred millisecond or thousands of milliseconds and so on. So depending on the application, you can keep whatever timeout you want to mention. And the other thing that we want to do is we want to sense the digital value of the 7th pin, or in this case the P sense. Okay, so what do we want to do? We want to use the other tool that we have called PIN, right? In this case PIND. So PIND is basically the input data. If you want to read from a particular pin, you have to use this register, right? Earlier we did not see the use of PIND or PINB or PINC, right? We were mostly concerned about the outputs in our Blink example. But if you want to look at the voltage level at a particular pin, you have to look at the input direction, right? This was already configured as an input. Okay, so we are continuously sort of, I would say, probing, right? So this is probing the 7th bit here, right? So PIND is going to give you the entire register, right? But we are only interested in the 7th bit, right? So we basically take 1 and left shift it by 7. So, and it's a standard thing, right? If it becomes 1, that means that pin 7 has already attained digital 1. So you want to exit the loop, right? So we want to run the loop so long as PIND and 1, this arrow 7, so left shift by 7 bits is equal to 0. Okay, whenever it is 1, we want to exit the loop. Okay, hope this is clear. Okay, so this gives you a value of delta. Okay, so delta is some proxy of the either you can call the RC time constant or the total charging time, right? We cannot exactly measure, or here we are not interested to exactly measure those latencies, right? Here this is sort of a, you can say, some kind of a jugaad we are doing, right? In all you care about is there is a touch or not, right? We are more interested in the algorithms for that, right? So as long as we can have enough evidence that there has been a touch or there has been a change in capacitance, we are happy. Okay, so now it takes us to the next part of the timeline, where we want to close the operations, charge the system, and initiate another sensing cycle. Okay, so this is here. And again, for these operations, we want to make sure that there are no unwanted interrupts in between. So the first thing we want to do is for the 7th pin, we want to make it high. So as usual, 0x0b is your data register. You want to set it. Then you configure it as output. So the data direction register for the 7th bit, we also set that value. And again, you write high, right? So high out and high, and then give some delay to make sure that that particular pin is getting charged. Okay, and in the meantime, you can set it as, after that you can set the pin as in the input mode and the pin number 6 as low, right? Because now we are proceeding to the next cycle. Before that, we want to make sure that the top pin or the P sense is charged, and the bottom one, whereas the bottom one means the pin reference, the pin reference is set to low. Okay, and then again repeat this over time. Okay, so let us see how the complete code might look like. We have looked at 3 fragments of the code, right, which is going to implement one complete sensing cycle that has one charging component and this one discharging component. And within that, we wanted to, while charging, we wanted to capture how much time it was taking to charge, right, at least partially. Okay, so that could help us in order to know what is the equivalent capacitance or some proxy of it. Okay, so this is the circuit you can actually have implement, and while there is 1 mega ohm resistance, right, there is 1 mega ohm in between P sense and P ref, and I put 1 kilo ohm extra, right? And then you want to put your finger on the right, on the bottom part, right, of the 1 kilo ohm resistor. It's not really required, right? For all you care is that whether if you touch this part of the circuit, this should also work, right? So if you just happen to have one, if you want to do it with 1 resistor, that is also fine. I just kept there is this to follow the same semantics as I showed in the figure earlier. There is a high resistance and there is a low resistance, right? And why this is high, we are going to explain all these things more as you look at the performance of the sensing system. Okay, so there could be this one sensing cycle which will have a discharge, sense, and charge phase, right? And after that, we already know that what are the different corresponding implementations. We have looked at how the discharge was taking place, how the sensing was taking place, and how the charge part was taking place, right? And after that, you can either return this value delta, right? Or if you want to run multiple sensing cycles, you can, delta could be a global variable and you can keep on adding to that. Okay, so this is one sample implementation of the sensing cycle, which will give you a value of delta, which that the value of delta should be used to distinguish in between the 2 states, whether it is a touched state or it's not a touched state. Okay, so the value of delta should tell you that. Okay, so if you touch on the lower part of the circuit, wherever it is shown, versus if you don't touch, you should ideally get 2 different values of delta. Okay, and in the loop part of your code, you can, like, this is a sample implementation, so this is not optimized at all, but it's just for you to understand how the entire thing works. So what I have done here is I have taken this value delta and kept on adding the value delta. Okay, so you can add it for several times, right? So in this case, if you are doing it only once, I will just ignore this plus is equal to. You can simply do delta is equal to, right? You can do delta is equal to sense one cycle and send this data out. Okay, so this is one way you can visualize that particular data in a system, right? In a remote system, let's say you want to send this data out to a laptop, right? And you can visualize that, and that's exactly what I have done, and I can share the performance of this system to some extent, right? So this is the circuit that I have just now shown you, and here on the plot I am basically plotting some value of the delta. Okay, so let's see how it looks like. So once you touch that particular pin end, you are seeing these disturbances, right? Which sort of means that there is a touching that is taking place, but it's not that reactive, right? It's not responding that well. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So you are basically missing out some samples, as I might say, right? Or it's basically there is a lot of latency that is there, right? Once you send the data out, and you then sense the next bit and next sensing cycle and send the data out and so on. So this could be the reason why you are having so noisy and first of all noisy and then non-responsive. Sometimes there is a response, right? Once I was touching for a substantial amount of time, there was a response. But if you just touch and let it go, touch and let it go, I was not getting a sharp response, right? So what I did was just I improved the algorithm, right? To have a loop, right? So instead of having just one delta and reporting it back, I was having a loop where I was adding these values of the deltas, okay, in a loop of size 10. Okay, and this cumulative value of the delta was something that was being exported. Okay, so this is some sort of some variation of a filter where some noise could be taken care of. Okay, so now let us look at the performance for this particular thing, right? Earlier we were just using delta is equal to sense one cycle. Now we are having sort of an average or a cumulative value of delta, which is across 10 sensing cycles. Okay, let us see how this particular thing works, right? So as you see from the snapshot already, right, this is again filled with noise, and there are many different levels that are going on here, right? So although it is a bit better, right, if you try to do something like this, it is a bit better in terms of response, but there is a lot more noise now. Okay, so whatever we were getting at 2000, yeah, as you are seeing that the values have kind of been multiplied by 10. Now we have this value at 20,000, right? So, but that does not mean that it is devoid of noise. Here we are actually seeing a lot of noise that has been introduced. Okay, so now we have this situation where we might be sometimes missing samples, right? And the other thing could be that it might be too noisy. Okay, so we have to somehow need a robust filtering mechanism. So that is one thing that is expected of this algorithm. It has to get rid of the noise and get the response as instantaneous as possible. And the other thing is that we have to rethink the sensing metric. We cannot just simply look at the delay and send it out, right? Is there any better possibility? Is there any alternative that we can report? Okay, which is going to make our touch sensing much more robust. Okay, so I'll keep it here. I have already gone through the basic implementation, and we are going to whatever we are going to learn from now is going to be a wrapper on top of the basic sensing element. And if you have time, you can go through it and try it yourself, right? So that you get more confidence about how the exact pipeline works. Okay, so I'll keep it till here. So the next class on 8 will not be a live class, right? I have to attend something else. Okay, so for the next class, I will send you a recorded version, which will be within the weekend. And again, we'll have a live class on the next day, that is on 13th.